The human's obsession with the beautiful, the human's obsession with the aesthetic. This is something that is almost innate in human psychology. No matter how much someone claims to be devout, pious, socially just, or religious, deep down inside in their psychology, there is a bit of judgment towards a person. And unfortunately, some of this judgment comes from the attractiveness of that person. Now, this is not a discussion of morality. I'm just going to get this out of the way. This is not a morality discussion. It is a discussion of observance. It is a discussion of the matter of factness. People do judge and are attracted to people that are aesthetically pleasing. This has been observed since probably the beginning of time, further back than we have ever had history. And it is a part of human psychology that might be regarded by some as a little dark, as a little bit insidious, because in this society, we are taught that people are judged by their moral compass, which is extremely true. But where the disconnect comes in, where the disagreements and the arguments come in, is that when something like this is said, that people are judged by their attractiveness, this is where things get a little bit heated. Now, this is not an argument piece. Once again, it is just about the matter of factness, and I will get right into it. This is Tarik Talks Midnight Podcast. You guys could have been anywhere in the world, but you are here with me, and I humbly appreciate it. People in general, no matter what ethnicity, no matter what background, no matter what part of the world they are in, they are attracted to things that are aesthetically pleasing. No matter if it is fashion, nature, and most importantly, other human beings. Now, some societies have very strict laws, regulations, and traditional restrictions on how free people can express their desire for attractive things, or let's put it in other terms, sexually attractive people. There are a lot of restrictions in some of these cultures, but as we have seen, especially in a Western culture, when this restriction is lifted, we see the true nature of people. People's true nature comes out. And yes, beauty and aesthetics is somewhat of a hedonistic topic. It is somewhat of a hedonistic aspect of the human psychology. It is basically just us using our carnal discernment. It is nothing but almost the animal part of our brain. When we see something, or we see someone rather, that is attractive, we are gravitated towards that person. We are aroused by that person. And in many cases, that person might get better treatment than per se someone that is, let us just say, not generically attractive. Now, whatever generically attractive or unattractive is to you, so be it. I won't discuss that in this video, but let's just say that there are some things that are universally attractive to human beings, no matter what part of the world that they live in. Okay. And it is somewhat of a shallow aspect. It is somewhat of an aspect in the human psychology that is very vain. And people will treat other people will treat attractive people with a little more caringness. And yes, this is somewhat harsh, but we have seen this. A prime example is when an attractive person goes for a job interview. It is more likely that a person that is attractive, he or she is more likely to get the job than someone that have might been perceived as slightly unattractive. Now, I'm not going to go into the nuances of experience and credentials. I'm just speaking on general terms, provided that this person does have the credentials and he does have the experience, so on and so forth. And sometimes, as harsh and as unfair as it sounds, once again, this is not a morality issue right now. We are just talking about the matter of factness. But no matter, even if the person that is perceived to be attractive, even if he or she is unexperienced in the job, they still might get the job solely based off how attractive they are. And this is something that has been documented. So a lot of people will get very triggered by this subject. This subject is very controversial and very triggering, once again, because society tries to put on a facade and somewhat cloak humans' dark psychological nature. But with this hedonistic society, this cloak is starting to be unveiled, so to speak. This veil is starting to come off, and people are not so shy about how they truly feel as much as they did when it pertains to attraction. Now, of course, there are some other subjects that are taboo, and there is a lot of virtue signaling. But when it comes to attraction, you will see this play out in society. You will see that mating nowadays is not so much about building a nuclear family. It is about attraction. I have talked about this before, but this is yet another example. This is not the whole basis of this podcast, but rather it is another example aside from the whole job example that I just gave you. Yes, if you do not believe that people that are somewhat more attractive are more likely to get that job, do some research on it. It is very true. Notice how all of the CEOs have a certain look to them. Okay, so with that being said, attraction is something that is taken into consideration. It is something that people, and this is where biases come from. This is where somewhat of an unfair, some people might say, bias comes from. As I stated earlier, attractive people are perceived to be more morally, they are perceived to have a more moral consciousness to them. They're perceived to be more moral, even though this person might be a serial killer. And in fact, there were some men that had that charisma and had that attraction, and this is exactly how they lured people in to their insidious plan. They were attractive and they had charisma. This is why you see a lot of people that are narcissistic. They are attractive. Not every single one of them, not every single narcissist is attractive, but a vast majority of narcissists are attractive. And you see this, and we can take social media for an example. You see that there are some young ladies and some to a lesser extent, there's young men that get thousands and thousands of likes, basically for their aesthetic, basically for how aesthetic their body is, basically for how aesthetic that they look. Okay. And they get thousands and thousands of views. And what this does to a person is it puts that somewhat touch of narcissism inside of them to where they get a heightened sense of value because they see all of these people praising them for absolutely no reason. And yes, this is another aspect. Humans praise attractive people for absolutely no reason. There is no way to get around this. And this is not a doom and gloom podcast trying to make people feel bad about themselves. It is just the truth. Yes, attractive people get praised for nothing sometimes. They are only praised at how they look, of their aesthetic. Okay. And this is an obsession that we have, especially nowadays, especially more than ever, because the veil, as I stated earlier, at least because one veil comes off and another comes in, that a lot of this is called virtue signaling, where certain groups and certain parties are protected and people can't say anything about it or else they're ostracized. But as far as attraction goes, this veil is somewhat being unveiled. It is being uncloaked. And we see that